It's kind of been a running joke, the over 40 lifters using their age to sandbag. I guess maybe to either get. I was doing it to get more views. I thought that like there wasn't a lot of over 40 lifters, and I found out that wasn't true. There's a ton of us. And then you get the guys that sandbag. They try to use their age as an excuse as to why they're not as competitive as the open guys. And I would make the argument that I'm actually stronger now at the age of 47 than I ever was in my 30s. But I also started the sport late, so I didn't start competing until I was 40 years old. So I didn't have a ton of mileage on my body like some of the guys that have been competing for decades. And that's a distinct advantage, and I know this moving forward. But the point of this video is not that you really have to... we do have to change the way we train as we get older if we want to see really good results. And I found through tinkering for the last 5 years that I was really holding myself back with the amount of volume that I was doing. Now, if any of you know my story, you know that I was a completely 100% natural lifter until I was 45 years old. And then around, somewhere in between 45 and 46, I went on hormone replacement therapy, and I did dabble a little bit with steroids for a few months, and then I don't do that anymore, and now I'm just on doctor-prescribed TRT. And it's easy to say, well, that's the reason why your lifts are exploding, but I am a data-driven guy, and I log every single workout. I write the numbers down, and even when I was using performance-enhancing drugs, I noticed that my lifts were not going up that fast. Yes, I was getting stronger. Yes, I was feeling like I was 20 years old. Yes, my recovery was way better. But I wasn't really progressing at anything that I would consider significant. And I just, for the life of me, couldn't figure out why. I figured, well, maybe I'm just not that talented. Maybe I'm just not an elite lifter. Okay, but I met the right person, and he suggested, why don't you try doing things differently? I'd been a traditional 5x5 guy when I first started, and I did that for a couple of years, and I got awesome results from it. And then that plateaued, and then I started training Westside. Now, Westside I got crazy good results from, but it was a very complicated program. It required a lot of my time, and I'm one of those guys that I just like simple lifting. Get in, get out. I got to go to work. I got kids. I got tons of stuff to do. I don't have 2 hours to be in the gym every day. I then switched to a modified Wendler 531, and I still use this program to this day. But no, with the Wendler 531, that was kind of like the best of both worlds. I got what I got out of the 5x5, and I got a little bit of what I got out of Westside. So it was almost like it split the difference. But I still wasn't progressing that great. I would train 12 to 16 weeks before a meet, and I'd maybe put 5 to 10 pounds on my lifts, and yes, that's making progress, but it's, put all that work in for 5 pounds, it's like really not that great. Well, ever since I made this one simple switch, my lifts have blown up exponentially. I have put over 200 pounds on my total. Everything's gone up. My bench has gone up 100 pounds in less than a year. That is insane. So, what did I do? Really, really, really simple, guys. If you're over 45 and you're struggling and you're hitting plateaus and you're training your butt off, the worst that could happen is this doesn't work for you and you go back to the way you're training. But what if it does? What if it does work for you? What if the thing that's holding you back is the volume and intensity you're bringing to it? So, what is that? I do hardly any volume now. I do 3 warm-up sets and as little lifts as possible to get up to my working weight. Now, I do what's called undulating periodization, which means 1 week I'm doing high rep, which is right around that 70% max range. The next week I do medium rep, which is focused around that 80 to 85% max range. And then the third week I do singles, which is that 90 to 95% range. Then I deload, and that goes all the way back down to mobility and heavy, like tendon work. So let's use the Wendler 5x5 as an example, or 5-3-1 rather. Now, on the day you do fives, what do? You do 5 sets of 5. And you hit it hard, and then you get into your accessory work. What if I told you, instead of doing 5s for 5 sets of 5, you take that same weight that you would do your sets of 5s for, and you do one monster working set where you blast an AMRAP, as many reps as possible, and you leave it all on the table and you just go for broke. So you do your 3 to 4 working warm-ups, you do your 1 or 2 sets to get up to that working weight, and then you just blast an AMRAP and you're done. That's it. And then the next week you're doing what? Triples? So same thing. You do your 2-3 warm-up sets, work your way up to your triples weight, whatever that weight is, whatever weight you would do a 3x3, and then instead of doing 3 sets of 3 at, say, 80%, you do one monster set, an AMRAP, to failure, and you're done. That's it. So every week it's an AMRAP based on whatever weight range you're working with. So the two things, you combine undulating periodization, which means every week you're rotating your rep ranges, and every week you're doing an AMRAP. That is your work. Warm-up sets, AMRAP, done. That's what I have been doing, and all 3 of my lifts keep going up every single week. It might only be a couple pounds a week. It might take me a couple weeks to bust another plateau, but they keep going up. They keep going up, and there doesn't seem to be an end in sight, and I'm not feeling worn out. I feel like I'm ready to go the next day, so I'm not feeling burned out. Now, accessory work. Yes, I'm still doing accessories. I try to limit my accessories to only stuff that translates to better lifts on the platform. So for bench, I'm doing overloads, or I'll do deficits. For squats, I'll do, I do things that will only help. So if I'm doing a certain lift and I find it's not translating to whatever my barbell lift is, I'll give it 4 weeks, and if I don't see an improvement, I cut the exercise out and I move on to another variation. So I'm always checking my accessories to see if they actually translate to better platform lifts. And if they don't, I just get rid of them. I ditch them. All about efficiency, which is why I don't spend a lot of time doing curls or overhead presses, because I've never seen an overhead press translate to a better bench. I'm just not that guy. I'm not built that way. Some guys, their overhead press is directly related to their bench. And if that's working for you, 100% absolutely do it. But if it's not, get rid of it. Go on to a different accessory. So now that we talked about programming, what about rest times? I have a physical therapist buddy of mine that I train with, and he told me that 6 minutes is the optimal amount of time for a human body to recuperate, to be able to put out a maximum effort without going too long. But I found that I was doing really, really well when I'm going heavy if I would wait anywhere from 10 to 15 minutes in between heavy sets. Kind of like I was at a powerlifting meet, because I had this theory, well, when we're on the platform, we're doing maximum effort for 3 lifts, and rest times are however long it takes for your flight to go. And that could be sometimes 15, 20, sometimes even 30 minutes if it's a big meet. So is there a problem with taking long rests? And I found that anything more than 15 minutes meant now I'm starting to look at having to warm up again. And anything less than that, I found that like a minimum 6 minutes. So anywhere from 6 minutes to 15 minutes. And I could go as hard as I want to for as many sets as I want to. What about accessory work? Well, accessories, I try to keep to 1 to 2, and I try to keep them strictly related to the program. So basically, if it doesn't translate to the lift that I'm trying to do on the platform, and I'm not seeing any benefit, it's not making my 1 rep max stronger, then I'm not going to waste my time with it. I usually give an accessory 4 weeks to prove itself. Like I said, I'm a very data-driven guy, so I'm always putting my sets on paper and in spreadsheets on a graph, and I can usually correlate if a lift is working or if it's not. And it takes a few weeks to get some decent data on it, but basically I try to rotate and do a bunch of different accessories. That way it keeps the repetitive motion stress down and keeps the workout fresh. I mean, let's face it, if you're doing the same lift every day, day in and day out, it kind of turns into a slog. So I do try to change the variations of the lift up, but if it's not going to help on the platform, I'm not going to waste my time with it. And that leaves us with just one other thing: what to do with recovery days. Well, as we get older, the number one thing that I think that a guy has to work on is mobility. We lose mobility, we lose quality of life. So on that, deload day, on that rest and recovery day, I do all the little things that I need to do to stay mobile. Those are the days that I do boxing, those are the days I do stretching, yoga. So I'm still doing something athletic. I'm still doing something that keeps the body moving. I just spend more time focusing on giving other aspects of, my physical being some love. And those are the days where I get my good stretching and my higher repetition stuff, and I get to try out new little exotic movements and do different things. I'll do those on my rest days. That way, I still have the satisfaction of getting some training in, but I'm not beating myself up. If anything, I'm giving myself some love, And in summary, basically, this also frees you up to add extra volume if you need to. If you're trying to focus on one lift and get it up to speed, like say your bench, you can do multiple bench days because your volume is so low. And that really helps when you're trying to focus on a specific lift. So in summary, summarize everything. What a typical week looks like for me. I'm keeping the volume as low as I possibly can. But man, I am maxing out intensity. I mean, when I do my working sets, I give it everything. It's a sprint. It's all I got. It's high intensity. It's as hard as I can go. And then I'm done. So that's where I'm getting all my gains, is from that magic AMRAP. Then if I want one lift to improve, I'll give it more than like for bench, I was doing 3 days a week for a while. Still keeping the volume low, switching the variations up, but focusing on one lift more than the others, it makes it really easy to adjust. You're not punishing yourself. The workouts, they can take as long as you want, or you can get them done in 20 minutes if you need to, so it can be a real time saver. And then I get to spend the rest of my time doing the things that help me live a higher quality of life, like mobility and stretching. And I can play with my kids. I can, do my boxing training. I can ride my bike. I can do other things. And it doesn't have to be all powerlifting all the time. This frees me up to be able to participate in other endeavors. And I've just found that since I made this minor change, and that's really all it is, just a philosophical change from lots of volume, lots of weight, to low volume, maximum effort. And my lifts have gone up exponentially. They keep going up. I don't know where I'm going to hit my next plateau. And maybe when I do, I'll have to make that adjustment. But for the interim, it really seems like this is the way I'm going to be able to keep moving forward. And I'm going to be able to keep training like this for hopefully years to come. I hope this helps. I hope you get something out of it. And hit me up if there's anything I can do to help you.